this computer. Ta-da!
Well,
Okay.
Whoever knew that one of our problems would be software improvements that we don't like.
Well, I certainly can identify with that. um, in reference to that, I might say um, that I do have a copy of the video from last week, and if anybody wants it, I can send you a DVD. But I have been totally unable to convert it. As a matter of fact, I can't even read what the extension is on it. Um, so, if you want a copy of last week class, I'll be glad to send it to you.
I think I can get along without it.
Well, it was mostly sort of reviewish.
Yeah.
So, Adam is without a head nurse this morning, so he's running the unit. Um, and I'm, as far as I know, Joanne will be here at some point. She's probably having updating issues also.
We should have known when you had updating issues last time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in their wisdom.
I'm
So, oh, what?
always concerned for Joanne because taking on world peace is a pretty big problem.
uh, yeah, I think you could say that. um, so, questions? How's your practice going with what we've been working on? Have you been practicing?
Yeah.
Actually, we have a beautiful morning here, and I went out. I had to get up early because uh, one of the days I dread most is when the cleaning person comes.
I s-
We have to clean up before the cleaning person gets here.
Yeah, right.
But anyhow, I was up fairly early and went out on the deck and saw birds flying around and did the practice. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
And are you feeling like you're connecting better to the middle Dantian?
No, but I am thinking about it. So, in terms of perceived connection versus intention, I'm trying to have intention, but I'm not having the perception. So,
Okay. Um, as always, don't think about it too much, feel.
mm.
Easier said than done, I know, but nonetheless. Carol or Bill, anything for you?
Well, I'm working on it, but I don't, it comes and goes.
Oh, well,
Sometimes, sometimes it feels when we first do it that I get it and then it goes away.
yeah.
And then, so it's, um, yeah,
Yeah. No,
I certainly don't feel solid in it.
no, I would not expect you to be at this point. Um, the fact that you're connecting to it some is a step in the right direction. And indeed, I think your experience is not unusual. Um, that sort of rings a bell with me when I was starting into this. It would, I would feel it and then I wouldn't feel it and then I would feel it and I wouldn't feel it. And eventually as you keep working with it, it solidifies. But it will take some time.
Yeah.
How are you doing, Bill?
Pretty much the same story. It's there sometimes. The lower dantian is fairly consistent. My awareness of it. So I'm hopeful.
Good.
I mean, if I weren't feeling anything at all, that would be a problem.
Yeah.
But you have a sense of the middle dantian. Sometimes for a good bit in a stretch, and then it goes away. So.
Uh-huh. Well, as I said, that's progress, and I think gradually, as you practice more and more, that will solidify more.
So how do you spell practice?
Good thing you're not here, Bill. I'd have to hit you. So, as if you didn't have enough to be aware of, we're going to focus on the upper dantian. And how it relates to thoughts and how it involves opening up the centers within the brain, as well as activating or connecting to the fourth Taoist energy body. Now, with the emotional energy body, we went a few feet past where your etheric body is. Sorry, where your etheric body's ends were. Well, when you talk about the fourth energy body, you're talking about going out maybe 50 galaxies. You're talking about going out in a larger amount of space that a natural human mind accepts as some sort of abstract symbol and is capable and is not capable of receiving. It's enough just to know that the upper brain center is related to the fourth Taoist energy body. So the upper dantian is essentially composed of 40 tiny centers within the brain. It is not that any one of them is the upper dantian. For example, in the yogic methods, they are really just talking about the pituitary and the pineal glands, while in the Taoist method, those are 2 of the 40. But there's a whole lot of other ones. And there is a much bigger issue about how you reconnect them. One of the big things that working with the upper dantian or working with the center of the brain, that's critical to it, is that your spine is not fully online so that you can't bring energy up within the spinal cord into the brain. There is a limit to how much you can open up the upper dantian in that case. But the nature of opening up the upper dantian is not just that it is 40 brain centers. It is that there is something in the way in which they all get together. That is the upper dantian. For example, one of the things that you will see in many of the old Taoist statues is an old Chinese man, and you can see that his head comes out very large, almost like the head of a movie alien, and that is supposed to symbolize the upper Dantian and the way their brain has developed to a greater extent than is possible in normal human beings. So how do you feel the upper Dantian is a very, very tricky issue. There are several ways of doing it. One way is through the spinal cord, and it is one of the major advanced methods of bend the bow, which are then continued in God's plane in the clouds. You have to be able to go through the 3 layers of the spinal cord. And through that, you get energy to move up until you more or less contact the bulk of the actual centers inside the brain. And then there is a relationship between the centers in the brain and the spinal cord. You have to learn how to have them go down the cord and come up the cord and into the brain. And there is a certain point where they all join together. So the other way it's done, which is much more difficult, is that if a person has actually, for real, opened up their lower and middle Dantian, then you simply consider the motion of the central channel upward into the brain, and by the time it starts to pierce the brain, getting very, very close to the center of the head. To Bai Hui, it naturally starts to spread and activate all the centers in the brain. This makes the upper Dantian be as though it were just a point, and that's very, very tricky. I can say that what this is the best way to feel the upper Dantian. The methods that many traditions used, and some people do, as is using their breathing and other techniques to go into the third eye and in the middle of the brain, or go into a number of other points in the middle of the brain. Although those can be somewhat useful, the great trouble is that they can sometimes also be dangerous, because what they can do is they can overstimulate certain brain centers at the expense of others. And then it's kind of hard to say how the individual breaks down because of this. Now, how do you keep your mind connected to the upper Dantian? We live in an overly mental world. In the Western traditions, opening up the psychic centers inside the brain was the route that they mostly went through. And most of them actually didn't even open up the heart center and didn't really much open up the lower Dantian, leaving their body alone. Everything they did was inside the brain, and that is because the West has a very distinct bias towards mental activity throughout the bulk of its history, especially during the Middle Ages and the Dark Ages. Just opening up the centers within the brain was used by many people, let's just say irresponsibly, or on the wrong side of karma. They wanted to be able to mentally control people by literally the energy of their brain being able to overpower the brain of the other person. Not so much in the sense of hypnosis, but much more in the sense of just taking it over or making the other person who was being affected feel weak and ineffectual, at which point they were incredibly susceptible to influence. This is also the reason why, when people did those types of things, there was a tendency for their students or disciples to worship the teachers as though they were gods, because they seemed like it due to the mental level of what they were able to do. That was their appearance. Well, since we're moving into the upper Dantian, we need to talk about Shengong. Really and truly, when you start talking about opening up the upper Dantian, you're in the beginning of the Shengong process. But the Shengong process actually goes much further than that. The Shengong process goes from opening up the brain to where you are able to open up the physical body, and psychic body. And opening up the psychic body is a distinct part of Shengong. Now, another distinct part of Shengong which becomes possible is your psychic body can actually actively perceive karma. Trying to describe karma to someone who cannot accurately perceive it is a little bit tricky. You can say, because of this is, and because of that is, but you're not actually directly perceiving the karma itself. That requires the psychic body within a person to open up. And as a general proposition, the psychic body opens up from the upper Dantian. It can be opened up from the middle and lower Dantian, but it's not as common. And so when you talk about Shengong, you're talking about when the Qigong practices move over the line from only being about the first four, the physical, the energetic, the emotional, and the mental bodies, to where you are now finally playing around with the psychic, the karmic, and the essence bodies of a human being. So that is one of the basic meanings in Taoism of the term Shengong. Now, some schools had Shengong meaning other things. In those cases, it was literally about how they were practicing to control spirits, which, if you want to come right down to it, is part of the psychic energy body. So in a way, you're talking about the same thing. When you go to the upper Dantian, one of the great things that is incumbent upon you is that you really start working with the upper brain centers. You have to have a very clear and present sense of seeing from your brain, not out of your eyes. Your eyes are just what goes through a layer that's much more subtle. But you seem to perceive what you perceive from the inside of your brain. More than only getting images, what you are actually doing is that your brain is also sorting out what is inside those images. And in the sense of mental, psychic, karmic, or essence, so that is because of their important point. Now, how do you keep your mind connected to the upper Dantian? First of all, you need a foundation. And the foundation is what we have done in the past few classes, where what you want to do is have this continuous awareness of the end of your etheric body, above your head and below your feet. Without that, being continuously aware of what's happening inside the brain is going to become disconnected. You do have the experience of that. It is going to be disconnected from your physical body. So the greatest single problem with opening up your upper dantian is that you need to simultaneously remain connected to your physical body. In a sense, that may seem to be going into the esoteric world, but I just give it to you as a foundation. Understand that you should have no expectation that I will teach this to you exactly. In a lot of traditions, when they are first playing with the psychic body, the biggest thing they play around with is what is called astral traveling. In astral traveling, the essential way is normally done is that you go up the central channel and out the head, and the non-physical part of you travels. And it is then able to communicate with what is coming back. But the biggest thing inside Taoism, which some traditions don't have, and is the reason why many people really get damaged from astral traveling, is that they don't remain anchored in their body. Now, what happens if you don't get anchored in your body? Out you go, but you're not anchored in your body, and it's possible that another non-corporeal entity to travel right down and come in and possess your body. So one of the things that they have in every Taoist practice, where they do go beyond the body, and there are quite a few of them, is that you have to remain anchored in your central channel and in your lower dantian and your middle dantian and your upper dantian. That anchoring inside these three dantians must be firmly anchored to your physical body. If that is the case, then you can't be kicked out of your body. Also, you have the ability to have all this input that is coming in from a rather strange world and be able to maintain your sense of balance and not to start getting into vast exaggerations, which, if you go far enough, can take people into mental illness. This has always been an important point. So the biggest single thing when you work with the upper dantian is that first you want to be upgrading all the energy flows inside of your brain, because it's only when you can actually contact and be aware of most of the energy flows inside your brain that you can actually become aware of what the upper dantian is. Because although it is composed of 40 brain centers, it is not the same thing as the 40 brain centers. The phrase that applies to this is, the whole is more than the sum of its parts. So you have to have, excuse me, the parts to connect the upper dantian between the But then the upper Dantian is capable of doing all sorts of things. And that is normally either taught in Shen Gong or taught in meditation, and not in Qigong. A lot of the people playing around with this in Qigong get hurt, and they don't have to be. Maybe you succeed, maybe you don't, but you're definitely throwing the dice, and you don't know where they're going to turn up. So the next thing is that if we're looking at the upper Dantian, your vision, as you start seeing from the inside of your brain, takes on a kind of a very peculiar tone, because it's as if though you are in this world and you are not. And one more point about some of this. The reason why is that when they describe the three Dantians, at least in the teaching in the Lao Tzu tradition, your lower Dantian is what they call the gate of life and death, because it is what is responsible for controlling all the energies in your body that allow you to keep alive. It is also the place in your body when it's time to die that will shoot you out of your body. And that's what will happen. The lower Dantian will pull everything that is the life of the body and take it all out, and it's gone. Your middle Dantian is responsible for and ultimately governs all relationships, not just the boy-girl or person and your pet, your relationship with a tree, with the ocean, with the stars in the sky, your relationship with any other being that is corporeal or non-corporeal, alive or dead. Anything that you can think of that is about a relationship is ultimately governed by the middle Dantian, including at its deepest level, your consciousness, whatever the source of your existence or your enlightenment, if you want to say that. But what the upper Dantian really governs is time and space, your experience, the way in which you live with time and space, the way in which time and space impact all your karma. It's a big thing. So this means it also governs all types of psychic events which are happening through time and space. So each of these three Dantians has a very distinct role. The most useful part of the upper Dantian practices, as they're done in God's plane in the clouds, is simply to upgrade the brain. It is simply to get the energetic flows that are inside the brain to work better. And given how mental the world we live in is, given how much mental action is occurring all the time, which creates stress, I think upgrading the upper Dantian is a very, very valuable thing to do, especially for people who are involved in extremely mental activities, of which there are many, not just computer coders, but with people who work in markets, people working in the theoretical realm, anything you can think of. Even when you're doing a very simple mental um, labor type of job, very often you have to be using a lot of mental energy to calibrate the machines that are actually doing all this work. So the upper dantian is quite important. Obviously, if something upgrades your brain, to start talking about it benefiting you in this way and benefiting you in that way is not doing you, it is not calling you an idiot. To think that you couldn't figure it out. And if you look at anything in your life where you are using mental activity, how will it benefit you to, if it gets better? It is very individual. The fact of the matter is that what is the benefit of going from stupid to smart? And what is the benefit of being able to figure things out? And what is the benefit of seeing things in macro and micro context? All of that's mental. But there's also something else about it. As you can make the energy in the body become more opened up and more even, you become less vulnerable to the syndrome of the brain eats the body, which is when the brain is overworking and having to strain to such an extent that the only way it can get energy, and remember the brain is taking up 70% of your body and energy, is that you have to have a way of chilling out the brain enough so that it does not have to pull so much energy out of the body. Because when it pulls the energy out of the body, that stresses the body. And when the body can work as well, it has to work, when it can't work as well, it has to work several times as hard to get the same results. All of these are very important reasons for opening up your brain. But I think to look at it from the point of benefits is more capitalistic than I really want to go at the moment. Now let's look at the next thing you have to have. If your brain is in your head, we have another issue. When you work with the upper dantian, you must have your feet and your body really grounded in the earth. Otherwise, people start getting what is called spaced out. And they really can't make a lot of sense of what's happening in life. Because it's as though you have so much energy and it's all of it flying around your head and none of it is back in your body. And you can't even recognize the realities of life. So all the methods that you've learned about how to get your energy in your feet, how to get it below the floor, making solid contact with your feet down to the bottom of your etheric body, how to be able to release your energy downward so it's not always flying upward. Because when it is flying up, it can encourage the brain to kind of leave your body. So these are some of the specific aspects of activating the upper dantian in gods. So I'm going to take you through a practice here. So if you'll stand. And breathe. Really establish your structure. Now it's going to be very important that you make sure that your mind is stable in the point above your head and the one below your feet, where you are at the boundaries of your etheric body. So put your mind inside your body. And a very simple question gets asked. What does your body feel like from your lower dantian down to your feet? Toes, calves, thighs, butt, genitals, the pelvis, all of it. Usually in Qigong, when you talk about heaven and earth, earth is from your dantian to below your feet. Now start to feel inside your body and see if you can feel everything upwards. Fingertips, belly, back, chest, neck, front and back of your head to above your head. What does the heaven part of your body feel like? Now take the sense of your vision to being from your eyes and have the sense of breathing with your third eye. Between your eyebrows, a little bit above them. And inhale so you get it goes into your brain. And when you exhale, go away from your brain. Noticing that when your vision comes in, it'll seem a little bit different than when it goes out, but that is normal. Now, when we talk about this particular center in the body, there are actually two of them. One is where you're only inside your skull about an inch. And the other one is where you're exactly in the middle of your brain along the central channel. So first, just focus on the one that's about an inch or a little bit more inside your head. And as you do this, you're starting to activate something that's within your upper dantian. And you have to do something else simultaneously. I want you to breathe from the bottom of your etheric body below your feet to your feet. So you breathe into your skull, you're breathing up to your feet. As you're breathing out of your skull, you're breathing down below your feet. And what you're looking for is not that the head is doing something and the feet are doing something else, but that they are exactly balancing each other out. So that when you're going into the brain, you don't have any tendency to space out or have your mind just start really free-flowing. It's balanced out by the fact that your feet are on the ground. So that makes sure that when you're working with your upper dantian, that your body is also grounded in the earth. The energy of your body is grounded inside your physical body. Because when you start going more into the upper dantian, it can start appearing as though your physical body is starting to go away, or fading in and out, or getting very odd, or completely disconnected. And now begin to breathe in further to the very center of your brain, which is where, if you want to say the upper dantian has a point, it's located. This is actually where the real one is. It's just not the whole thing. The breathing you're doing is keeping your body completely with the earth. But what you are doing with your head is not exactly completely with the earth. Remember, though, thought does not have to have any connection to physical reality. Whenever you start working with the upper dantian, you must get the balance between being present in your physical body and being present to what can take you beyond your physical body and beyond the perception of time and space you're in. And now I want you to take any of the movements of God's plane in the clouds, whichever one you personally happen to like, and keep doing this one practice as you do the movement, with everything else you do inside of it. Now, your fourth energy body can be accessed from within your flesh. So if we take the simple example of your arms or your legs, and maybe for the beginning, just take your arms, because they are easier. Your first energy body is your skin. And your second energy body is the Wei Qi, the river of qi that runs between your skin and your muscles. And the third energy body is deeper inside your arms, a bit more into your muscles. And the fourth energy body is again deeper in, moving toward your bones. But there's still space at the end of it for the psychic energy body, which is going to hover just above your bones. Remember, you have to have your feet and your eyes going in and out. As you inhale, going into your body to where the fourth energy body is. And when you exhale, going from your fourth energy body to your skin. Going from the first to the fourth, and the fourth to the first. You should know what movement you like, and feel free to take whatever movement you like, because by this stage of the game, you should know what the movements are and whichever seems right to you. Now, the mental energy body is not really thought. It is that from which thoughts emerge. So if you happen to get thoughts, it doesn't matter what they are. There is also a feeling at the depth of your body where something is going on. And as that flow at that deeper layer inside your body starts to change, your thoughts will probably change with it. And as you practice more and more, you will learn how to get a greater ability to control that flow. It's very hard to say how soon an individual will experience it. For some people, the outflow gets faster, and they either get manic and crazy, or else they get extremely creative. And there is a difference how those two states exist inside your body, how they feel. For some, if that flow becomes very slow and even, a person naturally becomes very calm and measured. And for some, if that flow gets slow and murky enough, They either get very internally still or somewhat lose the ability even to think if they want to. They go into great, long, blank spaces. Now remember, when you're doing this, you must not lock your arms or legs. They must remain flexible the entire time, because the pumping action of your arms and your legs will stop as soon as the joint fully extends. Now, it is said, and it is kind of hard to know what the exact truth of it is, that the way that Einstein came up with his famous theory of relativity was that he saw himself riding on the back of a light beam. Now, it's hard to know exactly where that came from, but it came to him from the outside. Maybe there are great aliens somewhere beaming that through the universe. But his mental energy body had to be clear enough to allow that sort of a vision to appear, and for his mind to be able to work out what that meant with his mathematics, what he knew. But the same is true of any other form of great mental creativity. So things that may seem to be spontaneous, bolts from the blue, may be coming from inside of you, or they may be coming from outside of you. And at this stage of the game, there are all sorts of things in physics that will validate that basic proposition. And a lot of it you cannot actually know. But if your mental body is open, that which is able to happen will. And then there is a whole question that has been going on in the world of physics for the past 30 years. Is knowledge inside the body or outside of the body? Each side has its proponents, but neither side can actually prove the case, because it is seen from inside your brain and getting into the fourth energy body inside your flesh. We're not going to try and do things where you're going to go outside your body, because this is a level of difficulty that very few people can pull off, and especially without a lot more training than is in this practice. But doing it to where you focus on the fourth energy body inside your flesh, that offers a more realistic possibility. I know when some mental problem was an issue that I couldn't figure out, practicing for a while with the mental energy body somehow the answer that popped up, it came from nowhere. Nobody knows. Now, if you wish to have your body perform any sort of physical function, mental energy can enable your body to operate more efficiently. Many Taoists who did martial arts found that when they truly could harness the mental energy body, all of a sudden, the power of their punches or whatever rather radically escalated. And it has nothing to do with how many times they were practicing the movement, but it did have everything to do with when they could completely motivate the mental energy body inside their body to travel to where they wanted it to go. Now, when you finish this repetition, let your hands come down to your sides and just stay aware of everywhere inside your body where that fourth layer of mental energy is. And just observe what it's doing and how it's doing it. But keep on having your feet below and your head above be stable. And seeing from your eyes going out and going into the middle of your brain as you go into your mental energy and come out of it a little bit. So pause and relax. So any questions or comments at the moment?
Yeah, I have a couple. One goes back to Shangun. I don't really know that word. Can you spell it?
Shengong.
Oh, okay.
Shengong.
Okay.
Shun means spirit,
Yeah.
and I presume since we've done a lot of
Yeah.
Qigong and Neigong,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah. A comment about what the practice we just did. I thought I had some success breathing into the upper dantian and out. Um, I would say that the earth part of my body from the lower dantian down, excuse me, is a lot more substantial feeling than the rest of my body.
mm-hmm,
Um,
good.
while I was doing the practice, I was also trying to hold on to the middle dantian, not having much success at that. But weirdly, when we stopped and you said, let your hands rest and see what's going on in your body, I I really felt the middle dantian.
Ah, good.
I mean, I was kind of astonished. I
That's
don't know.
that's a good step forward.
Okay.
Once you really feel it, then you can begin to really use it, work with it. Carol or Bill?
Well, all, all, all class, I felt like I've been struggling to stay awake and
Oh,
to stay, you know, in a fog. This last practice, I was kind of, well, let's see if I can pull some energy to dissipate the fog, and it
mm-hmm,
somewhat did,
mm-hmm.
but it was a struggle going in, and there's a lot in there that you talked about, and some of it, I have no desire to separate from my body and go off into someplace else. Sorry,
You
folks,
you
that's
have no
not.
need to do that.
There's no. If any of this is going to lead me there, forget it.
No, that's I think the point about that is that there are people who supposedly do that,
Yeah.
and that's fine. I- If they're comfortable doing that and they've prepared properly for it, um, that's great. But that doesn't mean that you have to do it, or Bill, or me, or anyone
Mm.
else. Um, because the main intention here is to, um, to help the brain function better,
Mm.
and that's a good thing. That would be where we would start. If you want to go off into space, you have to go. You have to go work personally with Bruce to do that. Anything for you, Bill?
Yeah, I think the thing that was powerful and I connected with the most was the breathing and having it start, below your feet and above your head and coming through the body was a terrific image. I think a lot of this, I mean, this was maybe the most dense and new uh, material and dimensional thing than of any of the other lessons we've had so far by a few orders of magnitude. So there's a lot. You did a heck of a lot here,
Yep.
um, which is a lot more than I certainly can take in or pretend to start understanding at this point. So,
And
but the practice and I think combining some of the physical things. I think the twisting was getting beyond twisting for me as we were doing the practice. The
mm,
uh, that breathing, as I mentioned, from outside of you know the etheric body in both directions, top and bottom, was really good, and I felt like I had a connection to the upper dantian, the energy going through there. So
good.
so
And you're right. This is more advanced work, and I think you probably need to recognize that this is something you'll come back to when you feel a little more comfortable with some of the earlier things. You don't necessarily have to dive into this today because we're getting not too far from the end of what I'm able to teach you. Um, I think, as I have said, I can only teach you the first 4 of 8 levels of this practice, believe it or not. Um, but as always, you need to think of the separate and then combine principle. So don't feel you need to rush into this, but you will have it to come back to when you're ready for it. So unless there's anything else, I'll say thank you.
Thank you.
See you in a week.
Everyone.
Thanks. Again,
I don't really have much in the way of woo-ness.
wooness.
Woo issues.
Okay. I like it.
I've been working on the second paragraph, but we're changing the week for Negong.
Yes, there won't be a
Well,
class
that stirs
tomorrow.
me up because next week my daughter is here.
Uh-huh.
And then the next class, I had already scheduled something because it wasn't a Nagon class. And so I have another commitment at 10 o'clock in the morning. So I haven't looked ahead to August to see if it's messed me up there too. But July is
Well, we are changing the schedule. We're just missing a class
well, no, if the class should come this
tomorrow.
week.
Yes.
So if we are having it next week instead, that's changing the schedule.
No, we're not having it next week. We'll have it in 2 weeks.
Okay, good. Thank you. That
So
makes things a lot easier.
I have in my mental list today to send an email to the 3 of you
Yeah.
and make sure everybody's clear about that.
Oh, good. It's,
Well, Carol, you don't have to woo today. Um, I don't know what happened to Joanne, but she's very busy right now, I know.
yes.
And Adam's Adam Adam's message sounded overwhelmed. Uh, he was having to be both head nurse and manager.
Mhm.
So, how's everything else in your world?
Um, so it's okay. I haven't gotten to see Shelley for a couple of weeks because
Mm,
John doesn't get moving in the morning, so we can't schedule anything for him in the morning.
yeah,
So it's always afternoon, so I can't go see Shelley at 2 to help her get
yeah.
changed. Um, we'll try to do that on Sunday this week. Um, and I have a colonoscopy scheduled for in a couple of weeks, and
Oh,
I
what
have a
fun.
ride for it, and that's been dragging on me.
Yeah.
And I've been just really, really sleepy.
Huh.
I'm usually not sleepy this time of day, but I am today. So um,
Are you not getting enough sleep at night?
yeah, I think I generally get about 8 hours.
Ah,
Um, but um, and anyway, so I'm kind of dragging, but
oh,
my daughter and her kids are coming tomorrow next week, so that'll be good.
That should be a cheer up.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, well, I hope you have fun
Thank you.
and hopefully see you next week.
Yes. Yes. I hope things are well with you and Jane.
Oh, they're good. We're doing fine.
Excellent.
I seem to be recovering from my I almost went into heart failure last week.
Oh,
So, but what was discovered in time, and I'm doing fine now, and I'm seeing the doctor on Tuesday.
well, I'm glad. I'm glad. I
Yeah.
don't want
So
you to
I'm
go
taking
through.
it kind of easy. I'm not pushing.
Yeah.
Um, so you have as good a week as you can,
Thank you. And you.
and we'll see you next week.
Yep. Goodbye.
Bye.
Oops, where's the mouse?